Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. I am here to give my reaction review to Dark Shadows episode 123. This episode was written by Malcolm Marmorstein and directed by John Sedgwick. So, in this episode, we see Matthew Morgan at the old house, and he comes out of the secret room, out of the behind the bookshelf. He says, "I can't believe what I saw. I can't believe what I heard. Um, you're not real." And he's talking to the portrait of Josette. And he tells the portrait of Josette, you're just some picture someone painted along, you know. And though Matthew is right, he's also wrong. I mean, this was a living person fictionally over 100 some odd years ago. Josette was once alive, and her death, by all contrary, uh, was very violent and could lead to somebody being a restless spirit. I mean, jumping to your death is not exactly ideal. So here's Josette's ghost. Not in this. Not in the Josette's ghost may not be in this episode, but it's on Matthew's mind. And you do see the picture glow a bit, and Matthew says no. Uh, Again, Matthew leaves the old house, uh, and you're gonna notice, Victoria. They don't show Victoria really in this episode, but they don't need to show her. Okay, we do get a voiceover from Alexandra, but still. So so Matthew leaves the old house, and we go into the diner where Maggie Evans works. Um, and as she's working, in walks Joe Haskell, who looks very scruffy. He has a bruise mark on his face, and he sits down, and they start talking. And you'll notice that the reason for the bruise mark, if you've never watched Dark Shadows, is because him and Burke Devlin got into a fight, and Burke Devlin punched Joe Haskell in the face. There is that. Um, Now, you also see him very scruffy because he's been out helping Burke look for Victoria Winters. Despite their little fight, they did band together and try to find Vicky for the greater good. To no avail, though. Vicky has not been found, and that's what Joe is coming in to say. There's no word about Vicky. They haven't found her. Um, this episode is the debut of Laura Collins. This here, 123. So as they're talking, a blonde-haired woman literally just appears out of nowhere from from the other side, which is the hotel, into the dining area, the restaurant, if you will. And she sits down and she's playing with her. She's fiddling with her ring, and she seems to be staring off into space. As Maggie and Joe both wonder who she is, and Joe says, well, she looks a little familiar, which leads me to the question of how the hell old is Joe Haskell that he remembers Laura Collins, or that he seems to remember her. Now, he doesn't quite fully remember her. He says she looks familiar. Is that every blonde Joe, or just Mrs. Collins? I mean, you just broke up with a smoking hot blonde. I mean, she just dumped your ass. I mean, there is that realization. I mean, if you having a panic attack here, Joe, are you remembering Carolyn? At all? At all? You think? You think? Okay, I just had my fun there. I do love the banter, though. I love how they're trying to like. Again, Maggie was way, way too young when Laura Collins was last in Collinsport. So, and she doesn't say who she is, by the way. They don't figure out who she is in this episode. Uh, Joe eventually leaves, which brings Mrs. Collins from the table up to the counter where Maggie is working. And she says, "Have you worked here long?" She goes, "Oh, I've worked here for 5 years." And Laura, not know again, Maggie not knowing who this is, asked her, well, it, if somebody was there. She goes, well, I replaced her. She retired. Uh, so there is that. This woman seems to know people here. No matter who you might think she is or what she is. Um, as Laura Collins begins smoking a cigarette, and if you're looking for symbolism, this is it. The cigarette is set in front of her, probably on an ashtray. And you notice the smoke doesn't seem to be coming in front of her, it seems to be coming from her. This is clearly done on purpose. Look, if you're familiar with what a phoenix is, great. If not, Google the shit, all right? Um, a phoenix is a bird that dies and resurrects every 100 from its own ashes every goddamn 100 years. And now, when I say this, you might say, wait a minute. A phoenix is not a person. And you would be 1000% correct if you're saying that. And I want you to give yourself a cookie. You deserve it. I may deserve it after this video. Maybe not so much. Now, that being said, when I say phoenix, are they exactly following the complete myth? To some degree, they are, because again, this woman will appear every 100 years in 1897. And that being said, again, so this is her first appearance in Dark Shadows history. This is Laura Collins' first appearance. We've heard David's mother mentioned very little, so there's been very little build to David's mother. She also knows everything about the town of Collinsport, that she's been here before, which makes sense when you get into the 1897 storyline. Also, again, I'll stop mentioning 1897 because though the two go hand in hand, we're not there yet. And that being said, she describes how the town is, that it's a fishing town, that it's the sailing boats, the fog. She describes Collinsport to a T. So it lets you know this woman has been here before, regardless of who or what she is. Again, she's a phoenix, bird of fire. And she will set people on fire, by the way. Yes, they set someone's hands on fire. Okay, that counts. That counts. I'll get there when I get there. So again, she's asking about David Collins. She knows about the Collins family. She goes, well, this town don't move without them. That figures. That hasn't changed. David's an okay kid. There's nothing a dungeon wouldn't fix. And Laura's smile goes from happy to, oh, he's a hellion. Look, and David can't be a hellion. I do kind of wonder, and I sort of wonder if this is for my character aspect, that Maggie isn't telling her that David has a tutor, that David has a governess. Because she doesn't in this episode. And I've always found this very interesting in this episode. Maybe she's not wanting to reveal too much about David exactly because she doesn't know who this woman is. Again, we know who this is. I mean, if you're a Dark Shadows fan, you know this is Laura Collins. This is a phoenix. Or sorry, Laura Collins. But it is a phoenix. The names. She's Laura. Is she Laura in name only? Well, she's Laura in look and memory. And I'll get into that in the next video. Not this video. There's other things to get to. So back at the old house, Matthew enters, and he's reassuring himself that the portrait once again did not speak to him as he opens up the secret bookshelf and goes behind it. David comes in with food for breakfast, only to not find Matthew at all. He's looking around the old house, inside of it, on the first floor. He hollers for him. He goes halfway up the steps, comes back down it, and he goes out. But before he does all that, he hears a sound behind the bookshelf. He hears something being knocked over. So when he leaves the house, he goes toward the window and he watches the bookshelf. And this time he watches it open up. He has discovered Matthew's secret hiding place. I'll say it right eventually, right? Uh, so David Hennessy's character, David Collins, uh, moves from the window. He hides by the window out of Matthew's sight as Matthew's now looking out of it. Um, and then he walks away from the old house enough to avoid Matthew's suspicion. Not completely, though. When Matthew opens the door, David says, I've been looking for you. And Matthew said, I heard you earlier. Where'd you go? And David says, I went around back. I couldn't find you, and where were you? Oh, don't worry about where I was. And he actually grabs David's arm, hurting David a bit. David even says, you hurt my arm. Oh, I'm sorry. Um, Matthew says. Matthew is very suspicious. He's also very paranoid. He's been paranoid for a while now, but he's twice as paranoid as he was after hearing the voice of Josette. He is literally going insane, and the ghosts are driving him that way. Now, you also, before David leaves, he says, "Please don't be mad at me. Oh, I'm not mad at you. I know you're just all worried and upset." And he lets David leave. David doesn't go too far. He watches as Matthew does eventually leave the house because Matthew has to get water for his food that David brought. Matthew goes back to the old house, goes to the bookshelf, opens it, and his eyes are as big as quarters. And that's where the episode ends. It's not a very long episode. These aren't very long episodes. These are 30 minutes, if best. And what you got to understand is Dark Shadows, the writers are making the most of every episode. You're going to get little tidbits here or there. Pay attention to the symbolism because it matters, God damn it. Also, I want to give my deepest sympathies to the family of Stuart Gordon. He was a he was a cameraman on Dark Shadows, and he sadly passed away. I'm gonna find interviews on YouTube and put them in the description box. Also, link to this episode is going to be in the description box. Hope you guys have a great day.